But we want to start in Florida, where the parents of Gabby Petito filed a lawsuit against the parents of her suspected killer and fiancé, Brian Laundrie. Petito's family claims the Laundries knew their son murdered Gabby, but refused to tell detectives and help in the investigation. Now, you may recall, Petito went missing last summer while on a road trip with her fiancé. Laundrie then returned to his parents' home on September 1st. On September 6th, the Laundrie family visited a campground. Gabby Petito was reported missing 5 days later on the 11th. And Gabby's remains were then found on September 18th in a national park in Wyoming. Brian Laundrie's body was found at Florida's Carlton Reserve on October 20th after a search lasting 30 days. Now, investigators determined Gabby Petito died as a result of strangulation, and Laundrie died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. All right, joining us now live from Florida, the Petito family attorney, Patrick J. Riley. Patrick, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Truly appreciate you taking out the time to be with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's begin right with the Petito family. I was watching today, I watched the entire hearing, and there were times where they seemed very emotional. I know this was a difficult day for them. The Laundries chose not to show up. How is the Petito family holding up?
They're doing pretty well under the circumstances. Of course, it's been a while since everything has occurred, but obviously when we have an event like we had here today, it brings back those same feelings and memories that they have that are so painful for them.
All right. Now, there were a lot of folks asking questions about this particular lawsuit. I had them myself. The arguments today cleared up some of it, but explain to us how you're trying to hold the Laundrie family liable for essentially not coming forward with information they had and for comments that they made regarding the investigation.
Sure. There's a couple aspects of the case. You're right. Part of it is for them not coming forward, and that's probably the most difficult part of the case that we had, but it's beyond that. It's their entire course of conduct. We have to remember that the Petito family and the Laundrie family knew one another. Their children were going to get married. They'd been at one another's homes. They talked on a fairly regular basis, and that all changed after August 27th. So we have a situation where we've had contact. Now Gabby's parents can't reach her. They reach out to the Laundries. They get nothing in response from the Laundries. Roberta Laundrie goes so far as to block Nicole Schmidt on her cell phone, so she can't call her, she can't text her, the one person who was her hope of finding out what happened with Gabby. But then the worst statement was the statement made by Attorney Bertolino on behalf of the Laundries, in which, knowing that that Gabby had been murdered, and knowing where Gabby's body was located, and knowing that the Petito family was desperate to find their daughter, he issues a statement saying they hope that they're successful in finding the family and that the family is reunited, giving false hope to the Petito family, obviously lying about the whole situation, wishing them hope. So it just caused them incredible pain.
All right, now I want to understand where you're grounding the claim that they had to talk to the Petito family. I understand they were friends. They decided not to talk after a certain point. They blocked them, did things that they probably should not have done, or one would think they wouldn't do. But legally, where are you grounding this claim that they should have or had a duty to speak to either the Petito family or the authorities?
Well, as I said to Judge Carroll today, that's probably the most difficult thing for me to get around. And so we're focusing not so much on the fact that they didn't speak, but we're focusing on their conduct from the 28th of August when they learned that their son had murdered Gabby until Gabby's body was found, and what they did. They went on vacation knowing that the Petitos were looking for Gabby. So they lived their life while people who were supposedly their friends were suffering trying to find their daughter. So admittedly, the refusal to speak up is a tough one. There's no First Amendment right, in my opinion, to remain silent. The question is there an obligation for them to speak up? I don't know, but I'm hoping the judge says there is.
Well, you talk about the First Amendment. There was also a lot of talk today by their attorney, the Laundrie's family attorney, about the Fifth Amendment. The fact that the Fifth Amendment protects them, that they should not be in a position where they have to speak, and it extends over into a case like this. Your response to that particular argument?
My response is I'm waiting for the Laundrie family to tell me what crimes they committed. I think we're all waiting to hear what crimes they committed. There was the suggestion that perhaps they were harboring a fugitive. Well, there was no a criminal complaint filed against Brian Laundrie at any time that I'm aware of, so they couldn't have been harboring a fugitive. The judge pointed out that we alleged in the complaint they were moving money around to try to get their son out of the country. Again, unless he's a fugitive or unless he's under bond, there's nothing wrong with that. Legally, morally, ethically, perhaps, but not legally. And so I don't know that the complaint itself made any allegations that the Laundries had committed any kind of crime.
Now, I want to be clear. You mentioned earlier that they learned that their son had done something to Gabby. We don't know that for a fact. That's not something that we know. I mean, you may have information, but as far as the public, we don't know that. But the judge, for the purposes of this hearing, was assuming that that was the case because that's what he's supposed to do. All the facts alleged by you guys would be assumed to be true. But what did you make of some of his questions during the hearing? I thought his focus on the idea that the Petito family, the lawyer for the Petito family, basically acted as an agent. They can be held responsible for what he was saying. He seemed to be leaning in that direction, and that would be helpful for you, I would imagine.
Oh, it absolutely would be, and I was pleased that the judge confronted opposing counsel on that issue, because that, to me, is one of the most significant pieces of the lawsuit. Attorney Bertolino, as counsel for the Laundries under Florida law, is in fact their agent, and not only that, the statement that he made, he said he was making on behalf of the Laundries. So clearly that was, whether it came from the Laundries' mouth or it didn't come from the Laundries' mouth, it was a statement that they're liable for.
All right, now once that connection is made by the judge, essentially, or made by the court, essentially, now you have another hurdle, and I want to see how you sort of deal with this hurdle. These statements made have to be so outrageous in this case that they rise to the level. In order for you to win, how do they reach that level? The statement that was basically made by the attorney that, was basically one of those canned statements. We wish them the best. We hope they find Gabby, et cetera, et cetera. How do you make it rise to the level of outrageousness to meet the standards that you need to meet to win your lawsuit?
Sure. I cited to the court several cases in which there was two cases in particular that involved a dead body. And what occurred in those instances, the courts in Florida have stated that while the conduct that occurs taken out of context may not itself rise to the level of outrageousness, it may just be harassing or it may be offensive, but it doesn't rise to the level of outrageousness. But when you take the heightened sensitivity of someone who is dealing with the death of their daughter, and then you add a statement like that on top of it, a statement made with full knowledge that the statement is not truthful and is not honest, because they knew at that time that Gabby was dead and they knew where Gabby's body was. That's what makes it outrageous. The fact that Gabby was already dead, there were grieving parents looking for her.
All right, I want to take a listen to something Steve Bertolino, one of the attorneys for the Laundrie family, said in response to this case. We had an opportunity to speak with him. Let's listen to that, and I want to get your response.
Even if everything that the Petitos have alleged is true, which of course we deny, but even if they are true under the law, there is no basis, legal basis, for the cause of action as it's been set forth. The gist of their complaint is that the Laundries remain silent, and we are now, or I should say the Petitos are now looking to somehow hold Chris and Roberta liable for the actions of their son because they chose to remain silent. Now, you can take that a step further and say, well, really their complaint is that they had their own actions, that Chris and Roberta's own actions. And that's just not true. Chris and Roberta did absolutely nothing toward the Petito family that would give rise to a duty or cause of action. So you can say, oh, there's an allegation that they assisted him in trying to hide, which we all know is not true. We said from day one that he left for a hike in the preserve. He never came out of the preserve, as we know. So where is that? I understand what they're trying to do, but there is no basis for it.
All right, so Patrick Riley, where is that? How would you respond to that?
Well, I don't know if that statement was made before or after the hearing today. If it was made before the hearing, then obviously...
Just to be clear.
Okay, so obviously Mr. Bertolino, I know he was present by Zoom, so he heard the arguments that were made. And he's wrong. We're not trying to hold the Laundries responsible for what their son did to Gabby. We're trying to hold the Laundries responsible for their conduct after they learned that Gabby was deceased. And in particular, as I said, going on vacation. The affirmative actions of blocking Nicole Schmidt on the cell phone and on Facebook, doing everything they can to keep the Petito family from contacting them to learn where is their daughter. And then the icing on the cake is Attorney Bertolino's statement.
All right, now all attorneys, when we're in a courtroom, when we make arguments, we have a sense of how things went. I want to get your sense. How do you think this is going to turn out? Do you think you're going to get a ruling in your favor and be allowed to move forward with your suit?
I do. And obviously you go into a courtroom in a case like this where you're sort of trying a case that there's not a whole lot of precedents out there for. And I was impressed by Judge Carroll, as I'm always impressed by Judge Carroll, the questions that he asked, because obviously he reviewed the materials before the hearing, and he focused in on what I consider to be some of the major issues, which are the statement by Attorney Bertolino. So I feel confident that we're going to be successful in having the motion dismissed.
All right, I'm gonna send you on your way with this. Let's say you're allowed to move forward. Let's say you win your case. What message would you want, or would you say a case like this, if you win, would send? What do you want it to send? What does it say to the public at large about their duties under these types of situations?
Well, when you have any member of the public, much less a friend who you know is suffering because they don't know where their child is located. Their child's been missing. That child's been traveling around with your child, as in the instance of the Laundrie and the Petito family. Your child is traveling around with that child, and all of a sudden that child disappears. Your son returns home in Gabby's van, and you cut off contact. That's just wrong. They could have spoken out anonymously. So the message that we want to give is, if you know that someone is in a situation like this and they're grieving and they're looking for their child, figure out a way to let them know where their child is.
All right, well, Patrick Rowley, I want to thank you so much again for taking out the time in your busy schedule to be with us here on Court TV. I'm going to let you go now. You have a great evening. Thanks again to Patrick Rowley. Really great stuff there. But quickly, I want to bring in my guest for this hour. Los Angeles County Deputy Public Defender, Philip Dubé is with us, and founder of My Rights Law Group, Bobby Shamuilian. Thank you both for joining me this evening. Truly appreciate it. Philip, I want to start with you. You heard my conversation there with Patrick Rowley. Love to get your thoughts on the hearing today, as well as some of the things that Mr. Rowley had to say.
I got to tell you, as much as I feel for Gabby's family, I do not believe that Brian's parents owed a legal duty of candor or a legal duty of care to Gabby's parents. Their gripe, their grievance, in my view, is with the Florida legislature. They should start a grassroots campaign to create new legal duties of care and legal duties of candor in these types of disappearances and in these types of criminal probes, in tort reform, all of that. But right now, I believe as a matter of law, this does not rise to what we call outrageous conduct. Whether or not conduct is outrageous is a question of law for the court. It's not for counsel. It's not for the jury. It's no other finder of fact. It is a question of law. And I think what the Petito's lawyer is trying to do is conflate the definition of conduct with statements. The fact that Brian's parents' lawyer went out on the airwaves and said, I hope they're successful in uncovering Gabby or finding Gabby, or words to that effect, is a statement that he made, is not a form of conduct for which a claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress is cognizable under tort law. I predict, and I actually hope, that the judge grants that motion to dismiss and does not allow this lawsuit to go forward. Leave it to a higher court to create that legal duty.
Interesting. Bobby Shamuilian, love to get your thoughts.
Thank you. I would have to agree with your other guest as criminal defense attorneys, this is like you said, these are our talking points that we generally make to the media if we have a client dealing with this type of scenario. And I think it's going to be very difficult to establish that duty that they owe the Petito family.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I wonder, though, if this judge might let this go forward, if assuming all the facts that they're claiming, which I still think they have a very high hurdle to even show that they knew. It's something you can infer, but to prove that they knew it, I think is going to be a problem. But if it goes forward, I hope he lets it go forward. I'd love to have this case played out in civil court. All right.